One of the easiest ways to make me happy is to toss me the keys to something small with sticky tires with way too much power. And that's just what we have right here. This is the BMW M2 and it's all new for 2023. It's based on the existing 2 Series, but the mad scientists at BMW M division gave it a whole bunch of upgrades. Before we get into all of that, do us a favor, hit like and subscribe below to get all of our latest reviews. When it comes to styling, I'm personally a bit torn when it comes to this new M2. I like how the supporting 2 Series looks, but this M2 has some rather jarring elements. Most notably, it's these squared motif elements that show up in the front, in the grille here and in these air intakes below. To me, they just seem out of place. And especially when you compare it to the 2 Series, which is a little more cohesive and graceful. Down the side, we have these aggressively flared fenders that give the M2 a broader and more athletic stance. And these 19 and 20-inch wheels really fill out the space. On top, we have this optional carbon fiber roof that comes with a rather expensive carbon package that also adds carbon fiber seats and interior trim. In the back, we have a return to the square motif with these extended bumpers. I think these bother me even more than the front because they tend to make the back end look heavy. Is it just me, or do you agree? Let us know in the comments below. I'm definitely not a fan of these elements, which is why I'd pick an M2 in a darker color to mask some of the awkwardness. I know that's not much of a compliment, but I also put this car up there with the first generation Porsche Panamera. Neither were really that attractive to me, but oh my, none of that matters when you're behind the wheel. Under the hood of the M2 is a twin turbocharged 3-liter inline 6-cylinder. It's good for 453 horsepower and 406 pound-feet of torque. And it's the same engine that's in the M3 and M4, just with 20 horsepower less. You can choose between a 6-speed manual or an 8-speed automatic. And to be truthful, I think I'd be fine with either for reasons we'll get into on the road. The M2 is rear-wheel drive only and should reach 60 miles an hour in under 4 seconds with the automatic. The manual should only be a few tenths of a second slower. Now with all of that out of the way, let's do some turning and burning, shall we? Off the line, it's easy to work the clutch for smooth or aggressive getaways. The pedal has a lot of effort, and that seems appropriate for a sport coupe like this, but it can be a little tiring in traffic. The shifter is typical for BMW, which means it's a little bit rubbery and a little bit vague at first. I personally like my shift gates a little more notchy and positive, but it doesn't take too long to get used to this one. Acceleration is brisk, and few drivers would desire more power than this delivers. Under hard acceleration, the M2 feels solid and planted, and the engine sounds decent, but it's not as inspiring or raucous as a V8 or even some competing inline 6-cylinders. The gear ratios are well spaced to keep you in the power at all times, but the physical space I have here for shifting is a bit limited. In some cases, these huge seat bolsters get in the way of me grabbing second gear. Automatic rev matching is standard, and it really performs on another level. You just drop it into the next gear and dump the clutch. It's great, but I still prefer doing my little heel-toe dance on the pedals myself. In general, I love stick shifts and typically recommend them for anything sporty and fun. But I'm just not as hot on this one. It's possible I'd be more on board with the standard seats that have less side bolstering. This might be one of the few moments where I prefer an automatic with paddle shifters. The good news is the automatic is actually quicker and returns almost identical fuel economy figures. The brakes, they feel great and instill confidence, especially when you're really on it. They're also easy to modulate and trail them gracefully into turns. In everyday normal driving, the brakes are actually pretty civilized. There aren't any real grabbiness or squealing when you come to a stop. Handling is really where the M2 shines though. With the compact proportions and sticky Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires, this thing just rails through the turns. The steering feels quick and direct, but there's not much feedback. But then again, very few cars have in the last few decades. The way it bounds from curve to curve is addictive and thoroughly entertaining. The ride is pretty stiff, but it's not nervous or jittery over broken pavement. Big bumps will cause some significant jostling, but the impact harshness has been dialed back to keep from sending jolts into your spine. You can also select different drive modes and settings to suit your preferences. There are also some shortcut buttons here on the wheel for custom settings. I have this M1 button set for all sport and with the rev matching turned off. You just hit it once, then hit it one more time to confirm, and you're set. Visibility is good, but the big bulge in the hood had me raising the seat just slightly to get a better view over it. Overall, this M2 is a wonderful dance partner on a winding road like this. Unlike some other sport coupes, it's also a reasonably comfortable and versatile pick for everyday driving. There's a lot more to cover, so let's pull over and talk about the interior. This new M2 adopts a more modern feel with this striking curved glass display. It holds the instrument panel and the infotainment touchscreen, but there are also some familiar accents here and there tying it to its heritage. There are fewer buttons on the dashboard since the climate controls have been moved into the touchscreen. Thankfully, those climate controls stay on the bottom of this touchscreen, so you always have this familiar place that's consistent to get to your adjustments. Here in the center console, you have some shortcut buttons to access some of the performance features. You have all of these performance parameters you can choose from engine response to ride stiffness to even how well the engine sounds and how beefy it growls. It can be a bit daunting with all of these choices in the menus, but they are really well organized and fairly easy to get around. Now the fit in here, it's quite snug, especially with these carbon fiber seats that are optional. Now, these side bolsters up top, they're pretty confining, but they are adjustable. They do go in and out a little bit. These thigh bolsters, though, they do not move, and they are very, very firm. They do a great job of holding you in place when you're cornering, but it can be a bit much in everyday driving. I'm also not a fan of this weird bump in the middle of the seat. It doesn't really serve a purpose, and honestly, it just makes me a little nervous whenever I get in and out of the car. I'd consider getting these seats if I was planning to do a lot of track days, but I think for most people, they should stick to the regular seats for a lot of reasons, not just comfort, but also I think it's going to be easier to shift if you go with a manual. And the best part of leaving behind that optional carbon package is you save $9,900. Materials quality meets the high standards that we have for BMW. There are plenty of soft touch materials and a sturdy construction. Now, that said, I am hearing a little bit of an odd creak over my left shoulder, but in fairness, this is a press car and these are beaten pretty hard. Another minor complaint is it's quite a reach to try and get to that seat belt. Despite this being a really compact sport coupe, I have a little more room back here than I thought I'd have. Now, okay, headroom, I am definitely limited here, but I have kind of a decent amount of foot room and leg room, and this front seat is set for me. On top of that, you also have some separate climate controls and vents back here. And you do have kind of an interesting view here with these optional carbon seats because they're cut out here on the side and they go all the way through. So if you have a mischievous passenger back here, expect a few pokes or something. Materials quality is about what you'd expect from the rear seats. There's a little more hard plastic, but it's all fine. Yeah, I mean, if you have friends and in a pinch you need to get them to lunch or something, these will do just fine. Now, they're probably going to be used more for cargo overflow for most people, and that's probably good because the trunk only holds about 13.8 cubic feet of cargo. As I said at the top of the review, I'm not a fan of some of the styling choices BMW made for this M2, but none of that matters because it's such a stellar performer. As other BMW M cars get bigger and heavier, this is a throwback to the lighter and smaller sport coupes they used to make. With a starting price right around $63,000, it's up there with what I consider its most direct rival, the Audi RS3. There's also the mid-engine Porsche Cayman and Chevy Corvette to consider. For more affordable thrills, you might want to check out the somewhat related Toyota Supra, as well as the all-new Ford Mustang. Mercedes is coming out with a new coupe and convertible called the CLE, but we don't expect any high-performance versions in its debut year. I love that BMW crams so much performance into this little coupe, but also know that it's probably a bit much for most drivers. For them, I'd suggest the supporting M240i xDrive that comes with all-wheel drive and a still impressive 382 horsepower. Out of all these great choices, which would you get? There aren't any wrong answers if you ask me, so let us know in the comments below. Well, that wraps up another fun review. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe below, and we'll see you next time.